So hello and welcome to another segment of Elder Abuse Awareness Virtual Coalition. My name is Elisa Gwilliam, and today I have the pleasure to be talking to Director of the Orange County Office for the Aging, Anne-Marie Maglione, and Professor of Psychology and Director of the Center of Aging and Disability Policy at Mount St. Mary College, Dr. Larry Forbes. And our special guest today is Orange County Executive Steve Neuhaus. So welcome. And today we're going to be talking about Orange County's response to what is going on with COVID and our people that are veterans or in nursing homes or families with disabilities and how things are affecting them. So Larry, do you want to start us off?
Thanks, and thank you for making this all happen and connecting us and doing the moderating, because you've done a great job with it. And we are really glad to be here today. And I speak on behalf of myself and Anne-Marie as well. And we have a wonderful guest, a major supporter. And I'm not just saying this because you're on the Zoom call with us, but a true leader. Okay, you should be proud of how you represent yourself and the county. And I say that, from the bottom of my heart. We started this Elder Abuse Awareness Virtual Coalition as a result of COVID. We had to pivot. We had all this content knowledge. We had a conference at the college about 3 years ago. We had 500 people attend. It's going to be a long time before we assemble 500 people in a single space. So I talked with Anne-Marie and Tim Murphy, and I said, look, I think I have an idea that's worked pretty well in this other project. What about, duplicating it, using Zoom and then getting it out? And the main message is, even though that people at that point were quarantined, the reality is you don't have to do this alone. Orange County is open, the Office for Aging is open, the County Executive's Office is open, Adult Protective Service is open, and we're here. And I think that message resonated really loud and clear. So much so that we now launch season 2. And we're only sitting here because of the support and funding of Steve Neuhaus and the Orange County, County Executive Office, because they know that this thing has value. Season 2, we have a specific focus: veterans, people in nursing homes, and families with individuals with special needs. So we are so glad you're here, Steve. And at this point, what I'd like to do is turn it over to Anne-Marie for the formal introduction and the beginning of our discussion.
Well, thank you so much. This is an exciting time for us. And, as Dr. Force said, COVID has changed everything. And we've had to, just turn around at the drop of a dime. And we were able to do that very successfully. And one of the major reasons we were able to do that is because of the leadership that we have in Orange County. I am the president of the Association on Aging for New York State. And I will tell you, there were a lot of counties that were not able to do that. And a lot of counties really struggled and stumbled. And, I think whenever you face diversity, it's a challenge and you can grow from that. And I really think that that's what this county has done. And again, I think it's the leadership of Steve Neuhaus. He immediately initiated daily calls, and communication is key. And we all talked about what our struggles are in our kind of a silo that we had, and we learned to break down those silos and do it as a team. And that really is with his guidance and his direction. And now we have this Zoom that we're able to reach out to people that, just because we have COVID and we have a pandemic doesn't mean that elder abuse goes away. In fact, it's been ramped up. So we've just now had to figure out, okay, how do we deal with it in a new, different way, because we do have a new world. So at this time, I'd like to introduce County Exec Steve Neuhaus, who has really driven the bus incredibly well. So Steve, thank you so much for being here.
Well, good morning, and thank you, all three of you, for allowing me to be with you for a little bit today, and I'm flattered by your humbling words. But I have to tell you, we have a great team here in Orange County. I was thinking about it as you're making the comments. We treated this thing, I just came back from Iraq a year ago. So this is my daily dashboard that I put together. So we run the county during emergencies like a military operation. And Anne-Marie is very skilled in this, because This is all green. But in the military, we have green, yellow, red, showing the status of where you are. And just like a military operation, the people on the front lines pulling the triggers don't necessarily appreciate the entire family until you need it. You don't care about supply until you need supplies. You don't care about food until you need food or you run out of food. You don't care about intelligence until you need it. Same thing here in county government. We have over 38 departments. A lot of the aggressive departments, the ones that are building roads, the ones that are running the jail or are doing stuff that you see maybe more in the front lines than the people that are maybe on the sidelines that you don't appreciate as much. So what COVID has taught all our staff is how critically important everybody is, and Office of the Aging being that department, one of those departments. So I'll tell you, one of the things we talked about before we came online, Office of the Aging handled feeding everybody, not just elderly, but regular families that just lost their jobs. And, you know, with supermarkets, you know, people being afraid to go, they really filled a critical role. Where I am today, some of the things that we're doing in the county government is we're restricting, like today, we're seeing a resurgence in numbers in nursing home. That scares me. They are high risk, and also very difficult to stop the spread throughout these nursing homes. I've seen them spread like wildfire and kill half of the residents in some nursing homes. So that's why that's first and foremost what scares me. So what you've seen us do over the last week or two, against a lot of people's wishes, is we restricted a lot of visitation. And Larry and I are technology people. If you don't have an iPad or an iPhone for your loved one in one of those facilities, most of them provide them. Some of them don't. So that's one thing that if you haven't done it, you should be doing it now, because we're heading into the colder months and we're seeing a little bit of a spike. The second thing, we're having a hard time finding who needs help. So as Anne-Marie said, you're not going to the weekly senior center. You're not going to these different activities that you normally did, where somebody says, you know what, I'm worried about Mrs. Johnson or Mr. Johnson, or, you know, something's not right. We're not seeing that anymore. So we're not getting those reports like we used to. It's the same situation I have with young kids that could be victims of abuse when they went to school every day. That's why it's important to send kids back to school, because those teachers and those caregivers were our conduit to reporting if something was wrong. The last thing is about identifying who needs help because of doctor's offices. We have a lot of people that are afraid to get their annual physical, afraid to bring their loved ones to get their annual physical, their dental work. And unfortunately, those situations, if they were pre-existing, can get worse. Or if there's something that wasn't detected, doesn't get detected. But it is a challenging time, but I've also seen really God's work from a lot of people, not only first responders, but volunteers, people that are in the business of taking care of elderly. And I'm happy to be here with you, and let's continue this discussion.
You know, I think the one thing that's clear is I'm not a big believer in coincidences. Okay, I think things happen for a reason. You know, you come here to the table today with, you know, leadership experience, with experience in the military. You were really built for this moment. You know?
Yeah, I kind of feel that way, Larry. And people ask, like, how do you deal with this? I said, I feel like I'm on every day in Iraq. The benefit of here versus Iraq is I'm home with my kids every night. Whereas every day I was like robotic there, which I'm kind of robotic now. I go through the names, I sift through the names, who needs help, what's on fire, what do we have to put out? But people ask me about our own mental health, like everybody on here, like Anne-Marie has seen tragedy, like friends of ours have passed away, in our opinion, almost needlessly because of the spread of the virus, right? But we keep soldiering on, and mental health, I know I'm going all over the place, Larry, but I have ADD, and I literally do.
But look how it's worked for you. ADD channeled properly, we call that motivation, determination,
Absolutely.
and drive.
Yeah.
You know?
It's just quick attention thing. That's my problem.
Yeah.
15 minutes and I'm on, buddy.
Yeah, yeah.
Or we got to keep moving on. Or as long as we're engaged in a conversation, I'm good. But if I'm hearing a lecture, I'm like, did I leave the stove on, or do I have to paint the garage?
You had to throw that thing in there about the lecture because you know that's what I do for a living, right?
But if you make it interactive, it's good.
And I also think that's really important that you talk about that, because prior to COVID, we would do a symposium once a year on elder abuse, and people would come up and they would talk. And not to say that it wasn't useful, because it was very useful, but then it kind of went away until next year when we did it. And we decided we needed to do something different. We needed to interact with people. And this is an interaction because it's going to be on Facebook. People then will send questions to us. They'll email us, so we know that we're reaching people and that we're getting to them. And that's the important thing. And just doing a variety of different topics, because we know that people are lonely. You know, mental health is a huge issue right now. Older adults are COVID fatigued, and they're alone, and they're afraid because now it's coming into the dark, cold months, and they're like, I don't know if I can do it anymore. So it's so important to keep this connection going and this communication going.
Absolutely. And for everybody, Larry, right?
Yeah, and I think that, you know, the overarching theme is you don't have to be alone. You don't have to do this alone.
Right.
You know, being alone is a choice. Because why? Because of the fact that you have access to services, people, programs, neighbors, and that's one of the things that we're really proud of. You know, Alyssa and her team have done a really great job in highlighting this through social media, Facebook, YouTube, our website, you know, and being able to get it out locally, statewide, and federally. But I want to circle back to the real, you know, the real points that we zeroed in on for season 2, which are veterans, nursing homes, and families with special needs, with individuals with special needs. Prior to coming on, we talked about, you know, the definition of elder abuse. It's not just something that's being done to a person, but it's also something that the person could be doing to themselves through, you know, defeating behavior or neglect or not caring for themselves. And one of the messages that we were able to get out when we were doing the public forums was the fact that you have a choice here. You know, you can, you know, learn how to cower and learn how to, you know, position yourself as though you're going to be victimized, or speak up. The name of the conference was called Age Loudly. You know, age like it matters, because it really does. So maybe you could talk a little bit about the connection with veterans, and you mentioned the nursing homes, but also for families, because you said something very important, that there are people out there that are almost like off the grid. You know, how do you find people that don't want to be found, not in a investigative way, but they just don't want to be connected? And that's an interesting, you know, dilemma that needs to be solved for anybody that's providing services. So maybe you could talk about that.
It's a great point as far as veterans, which is very unique. And I just started, and I've been in the business for a while, and I've been in the military, I think over 15 years now, but only since I was county executive did I really start understanding it. I've had multiple occasions in my office here where I ran into a guy the night before, grizzly guy, ponytail, served during NOM, cool. Tell me about, you know, he's like, can I meet with you privately? Okay, no problem. Comes in the door, shuts the door, starts crying. And it's happened multiple times since I've been county executive. And I'm not a professional like you, doctor. I don't understand a lot of these things. I'm just a regular guy. And my success that I've seen anybody have with the military is a fellow veteran is a very good door opener. Hey, I know what you've been through. Or hey, I can understand what you've been through. Let's talk about this. Where are you now? Where do you see yourself? Let me tell you about a friend of mine that this happened to him and what he's doing now, or she's doing now. So I think that connection, I hate to say it, I've never seen it before, except within this military family, and you bond with a complete stranger. And they don't care what branch you were, what war you served in, what you did, what you didn't do, but it is a good door opener. Because I also sit on the board of directors for this group called the Iraq and Afghanistan Families of Iraq and Afghanistan War Vets. And we handle everybody. World War II, Korea, Vietnam. They're homeless. They're not paying their bills. They've given up on life. So we're kind of like the A team if the federal government, the state government, or the county can't do anything, or maybe they're limited by what they can do. But they often are alone. We have veterans right now that are homeless in Orange County and throughout the state that choose to be homeless. We helped a guy that was living in a tent by the Delaware River not too long, a few years ago, lived in there for years. And he was entitled to benefits, but would rather be by himself in a tent. He'd get some benefits. People would drop some stuff off. The police knew he was there. He'd also catch fish in a river. But we introduced him by going to see him to a better life. But it's that if people see a guy like, oh, that's the veteran, he lives there, he chooses to be veteran, sometimes you can get them off the street by introducing them to the right men and women to open that door, to open that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Anne-Marie?
No, I was going to say, I think you're absolutely spot on with that. You know, we unfortunately with Adult Protective Services and OFA see people that are in very difficult, abusive relationships, often at the hands of family members. And they feel like, well, this is my lot in life. This is what it's supposed to be. And it's really our team that we've comprised of, you know, the county exec's office, the DA, the sheriff, Adult Protective Services, Consumer Affairs, to kind of show them that, no, there is something better. So you're absolutely right. And a lot of times these people we run into them and it's hard to change.
I had one great story that I love talking about. Was an individual who was living in his car. Car didn't even really run. And he would go to shelters, maybe eat outside, but he wouldn't sleep in them. So, and I'm not advocating for this, but another friend of ours that's part of our team, Chris Mahalnelli, is a great guy. He's not a veteran. He said to this guy, the guy was always like drinking Coors Light. He's like, why don't you come sit with me at the local VFW and have a beer? I'm not saying that's what you want to encourage, but it opened the door. So the guy said, yeah, I'll have a beer. And he goes, so where do you live? He goes, that's my Jeep Cherokee. I live in that. He goes, well, why don't we can get you an apartment. You're entitled to benefits. What if I said I can get you an apartment and get you clean clothes and all that stuff? He goes, by yourself. You're not going in a mass community thing in a shelter. And what if I told you I can get you a job? What did you do in the military? You said you cooked, right? Do you like cooking? He goes, I love cooking. So that guy unfortunately passed away about a year ago, but for about 3 or 4 years, Anne-Marie knows the story. He was living in his own apartment. He had a purpose. He was cooking, not at a restaurant, but at a local shelter and making like all these crazy cool meals. And he would take pride. You'd see him walk around the table. How'd you enjoy that, Larry? Do you like that meal? Oh, you want a little bit of this, a little bit that differently? But if we can open the door and show a pathway and give them something to do, which I believe there always is opportunities out there, those are the stories that I'd like to be part of. And I think those are the ones that are successful.
But you are part of those stories. You know, about 13, 14 years ago, my friend, dear friend and colleague, Jeff Kahan and I ended up getting an NIH grant through our center. And the idea was to do a national survey of the area agencies on aging. Because I had worked for state government for years, I thought that every state provided services like we did in the area aging, you know, world, you know, through county government, only to find out that most states do it through nonprofit. But there's a benefit of the model that we have and how it's delivered. And I've said this to Anne-Marie privately, and I'll say it publicly. I come back from that whole, you know, review of nationwide. She's a star.
Yeah.
She really is a star. Okay, because there are some AAA directors throughout the country that send their bodies to work, but not their spirit. And in your case, you know, in your county, she's there, you know, she's advocating. But she can only be as good as the team that she works with. And when Anne-Marie was going through that thing about, you know, the DA and the sheriff, I was taken when we did that forum at the college and we had the presentation. It was almost like you marched in like a team. You had the DA, you had the sheriff, you had other representatives from the county. And they could only do that because of the style of leadership that you have. Okay. Yeah. And the fact is, again, I'm not saying this because you're sitting here. I've had these conversations privately with people. You're doing a great job. You have no idea that you were going to do this job, but you're doing a great job. You know, and as we continue, you know, to get this message out, and we're only sitting here because of the support that you and the county provided, with this focus on veterans now and nursing home patients and families with special needs, what's a message that you would like to be able to, like an umbrella message to the people that are watching this?
I think there's two things. One is obviously public health and your loved one's public safety. Everybody's public safety is paramount. Anne-Marie and I had a coworker that was younger than me and younger than Anne-Marie that nearly died, was in the hospital for 3 months, 2 months on the ventilator. So everybody that gets impacted by this should take this seriously. And on top of that, some of the policies and procedures, we've been very forward leaning. My health commissioner is very young and aggressive. And she said right at the get-go, she was talking about this in December, so much so that my legislators and I were like, look, you got to tell this doctor, Steve, to stop talking about this crazy thing in China. We don't care about it. We're trying to balance a budget. And I'm not trying to be critical, but everybody in this country, this was not on our radar at Christmas time last year when the first cases started hitting and developing up over there. So when this first hit, she said, we got to close the schools down, got to start shutting down visitation in nursing homes. And we did that. And people were like, oh my God, what are you doing to us? It proved to be the right medicine at the time to try to nip this in the bud. Unfortunately, other people, the whole machine throughout the country and the state were not moving in tandem. But so when you see these new things come down, like in the last week, visitation being limited, you know, if you want to see your mom or dad or your loved one, you better get one of these. It is serious stuff, and it's very sad stuff. Christian Farrell, who runs our Veterans Affairs for Orange County, lost his dad. They dropped him off at the hospital, didn't speak to him for 14 days. He died 14 days later. That's not a very nice ending, right? So one of the things I encourage people, I've mentioned it like 3 times, have the technology, because I've read testimony that's going to the Senate from doctors that said, I grabbed my personal cell phone, I called the person's loved one, I put it on speaker so they could say goodbye to each other. That's a brutal, tough story. On the other side, while we have our grandparents now, my kids have their great-grandparents that are like 96 and 97 living together in the home on their own. What is a great thing that you can do right now with your grandkids? Or maybe, Larry, you and I, right? What's your story? What's my story? Maybe do a half hour once a week with your great-grandparents. Hey, tell us about yourself. Do you really know everything about your loved ones? An elderly person who passed away, Bill Sabella, 93, died during this COVID crisis. I was his honor guard during going to the honor flight. World War II veteran, Italian guy from Chester. He ended up passing away during COVID, but I went on, and I know almost more about him than his family does. And we're going to share ideas. And one of those Vietnam veterans that came in to see me also passed away during COVID. And his family, behind me, is a ton of stuff from the military. It looks like a shrine behind my wall. Some of the stuff I have behind me was left to me from this guy who I'm very friends with his family. And they said, Steve, we would love for you to tell us about our dad. So there's an opportunity now to know about your dad, your mom, your best friend, Larry, that might be a little bit older than you or me. There's some great opportunities out there. Like Anne-Marie's saying, it's dull outside. Looks like we're heading into the winter months. But there's some fantastic opportunities to learn about people that are still with us. So I wouldn't let that opportunity, just because you can't physically see them, do that Zoom meeting with your grandpa, your grandma, or your friend, and codify that story.
You know, I teach a theories of social casework class. And one of the things that I do at the very beginning, the first assignment, is I have the students do a 3-generation genogram. So they start with themselves, their siblings, they go to their parents, their aunts and uncles and cousins, and they go to their grandparents. Because the message that I want to be able to drive home there is, in our world, we often say to somebody, you know, with pad in hand or pen in hand, tell me about your family. And then we sit back. And my point to them is, it's not easy talking about families. And I want to give them the experience of what that's like. And then they have to put together like 5 indicators and send it in. And if all the indicators are what's wrong, I won't even grade it. I'll send it back.
Yeah.
Because I want them to understand that every family has strengths as well. And this idea of this exchange between grandparents, the way that it could be structured, it almost like game-like, about creating this genogram.
Yeah.
You can go on Google and type in the word genogram, and they'll give you examples of how to do it. Because the grandparents and great-grandparents are the historians of the family.
Absolutely.
And once they leave, you know, and cross a threshold, that history is gone.
Yeah.
So this idea of, especially now coming up to the holidays, of encouraging people to do virtual genograms and exchange information is a great idea, you know, because it's a way of connecting people in a world that's somewhat disconnected right now.
And it's not difficult to do. You don't have to, you could start with the basic questions, like, how the hell did we get here? Are we from here? Are we immigrants?
Right.
You know, why did you choose being a nurse as opposed to being a construction worker?
Right.
And it'll take a life of itself.
And the voice of the grandparent and the great-grandparent needs to be captured in some type of document that can be passed on further down through the generations.
Yeah.
I have a cousin that's, I mean, she's on fire with this genogram thing. And I have it on my desk right here. She shows up at a family event and gives each of us in the family this.
Wow.
Which is a folder, a binder of our family history. You know how rich this is?
Absolutely.
You know, to be able to go back and see who's who and what they did, and even like the personality she's been able to capture, some of the words of the personality.
And losing 1 or 2 people, that book could be in a garbage. You would never have it.
Never. Or it could have been half that size.
Yeah.
Right.
But she was able to, you know, I mean, she's really into this, you know, genogram material, genealogy, and she really, and it wasn't just review of documents. She actually had conversations with people, which was really important.
A funny story about that, excuse me, we did what's called the Veterans History Project, because we had so many cool stories of people serving in the Orange County. So we had a guy who's now like 93. This is like 20 years ago. He's in his 70s, and he interviews a guy in his 90s, or somebody interviewed him that was in their 50s, and now this guy's in the 90s. The younger guy that interviewed him in the 50s died. So they had a dialogue, almost like a fireside chat. You know, you could have you know, Anne-Marie and I talking across from each other. How'd you end up in Office of the Agent? How'd you end up being county executive? A story like that. And the younger person, you know, you get their story as well. You know, how did you pick your thing? So you can make it whatever you want. You can make it a dialogue between grandparent and grandson, or father and son, or mom and son, any type of relationship. Like my mom has just as awesome of a wild, you know, story as my father did, both immigrants, and how they came here and how they learned and what jobs that they had. We've all had good and bad jobs in our lives. And those stories mold you of who you are.
I had a student one time who had a roommate that was diagnosed with MS, and she did her whole project on MS. And at the end of the semester, she gave it to her roommate as a gift. I didn't have to say to her in the morning, you know, you need to work on this project. She was into this. And this idea of a genogram with the holidays coming up, what a gift to be able to create something like this and then give it to other family members.
I never heard of that term, genogram, but I wrote down the historians of the family. These are great things to spread to people, like you said, around the holidays.
Absolutely.
It's a great thing. A couple of years ago, we at our senior forum, Taylor Sterling came, and she actually sat with people for 15 minutes and she asked them questions. And, you know, a week later, she gave them a CD and said, give this as a gift to your family. And you're right, it's so important. Everybody needs to belong. They need to have a sense of belonging. And to have that, I mean, my dad died 6 years ago, and to this day, I'm like, God, I wish I had asked him that. I don't
Yeah.
remember is that. Yeah, don't wait for
Yeah.
that. But great idea. Maybe we'll do the Office for the Aging.
I watched that. You know, we should probably put something out between the four of us, or four of us, of just like the basic 10 questions, because that
Yeah.
the Veterans History Project went across the country, and those dialogues are codified and kept in the Library of Congress. That's how they wanted to hear these veteran stories, because we're losing so many of them. But they gave you like 10 basic questions to start the ball rolling, because a lot of people are like, we're not professionals in doing this. We're not professional interviewers. But I sit and listen to my kids talk to their great grandparents, and I said, and my grandparents are all gone, all immigrants, but you still have your parents here. You still have us here. You know, Larry, your story, and Alyssa and Anne Marie, those stories are worth repeating.
Absolutely.
It's a good idea. We should do that. That would be nice.
Well, can I say this? We will do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll come up with, collectively, we'll come up with some 10 questions, and I'll put in a couple of links about where you can find genogram templates, send it over to you, we'll exchange ideas, and let's go.
Love it. I think that's a great idea.
Put it on the
Steve,
website.
listen, we can't thank you enough for joining us today. Anne Marie, any summary comments? Anne Marie?
No, I think this is so wonderful. And again, this is all come from just having to think differently and do work differently. And, what we do is individual. When we do things at Office for the Aging, it's not just a collective thing, because you're dealing with people's lives and you're dealing with individuals. Yeah. And when you have, and when you have the county exec whose mantra is, not on my watch, it really is so, it's so helpful to know that, hey, I have an idea, I want to do this, and you're like, run with it. If this is going to help somebody, run with it. So, I'm really proud to be an Orange County resident, and I've said it before. I know you guys are Dutchess County, and Dutchess is my second favorite, but I'm so proud to be in Orange County and working in Orange County. So I can't thank you enough, County Exec.
I appreciate it. Look, you guys are doing, I say God's work, and I got to tell you, like, one of the things that I've learned from the military is you get put into bad situations, and you can either dwell in it and be like, oh God, or you can make the best of it. So despite us not physically being able to see our loved ones, how great is it to talk about like what we're talking about now? And everybody I know, every person I know that's lost their parent, I haven't lost my parents. Every person I've talked to that's lost their parents said, I wish I had more time with them. I wish I was able to talk to them about this. And this school project, I have to thank Chester Elementary, because my daughter Emma was asked to do this thing about their grandparents last year. And that's what started this whole idea. Every one of my wife's siblings and her cousins are like, oh my God, this video is priceless. I didn't know about this. I didn't know about them. And 97 years is a long story. But Larry and Alyssa and Anne Marie were a lot younger than that. We have great stories too. Absolutely. So you don't want to lose that. You can have those conversations in it. So I'm excited about it. I am concerned where we are right now about, and I think the message out there is you have to be more vigilant than ever, and also be more aware. So if your neighbor is not going to the senior thing once a week, maybe check on them. How you doing? What's going on? Are you ready for the winter? Do you got enough food? Who's delivering food to your house now? Meals on Wheels goes down. Who's going to be looking out for that one? Are you going to the doctor at all? Those type of questions, somebody's got to ask them. And you don't have to be a blood relative to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's great. And if you need assistance, please call our New York Connects number. It's our single point of entry. It's 845-615-3710. If you or someone you know is suffering some sort of abuse, whether it's self-neglect or at the hands of someone else, give Adult Protective Services a call. It's 845-291-2800. It can be anonymous, so if you're a neighbor and you're seeing something that you don't like, you can give it a call. You know, best case scenario, it's nothing. Worst case scenario, you know, it is something and we're going to deal with it. But we are here, we are a team, and keep your eyes and ears, because you are our connection to people and helping them.
Steve, great message. A salute to your leadership style and a salute to your service.
Well,
So
thank you.
you for joining us and for supporting this.
Always great seeing you guys.
Great seeing you.
So, well, you are not alone. And that really is our message. Whether you reach out to New York Connect at 845-615-3710, or reach out to a neighbor and a friend. We just want to thank you so much for joining us today. And you've been listening to Elder Abuse Awareness Virtual Coalition. And if you want to hear this program again, share it with friends, or even comment on it, you can log on to our website at www.elderabuseawarenessvirtualcoalition.com. We can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. So we hope you join us again next week as we continue our conversation.